Well, thanks so much, Dave. And I am so glad that it went really well with the first one. We always hope it does. We always believe it does. And then, we always get a good response. And I guess I'm always happy when the kids, actually enjoy it as well. So if the kids do, I know the adults will. So uh, the very first one we did, and I'm sure many of you saw it, was on marijuana. And of course, you had the questions like, this is great information, but what do I do with it? So this will be a plug for tomorrow because that's what we're going to be talking about is the way that we talk to kids. And way back in the day when I first met Dave, I was working at Loma Linda University. And I know this is going to sound crazy for those of us working in the field, we were having a 93% success rate of kids not going back to drugs and alcohol 18 months after graduating our program. And the hospital kept real close tabs on all the students and they asked what we were doing different when we started working with probation. And it's just the way that we talk to kids and how we get information across. So that's going to be tomorrow. So all of this is like your building material. And tomorrow we're going to tell you how to put it together. So make sure you join that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Also, in the last presentation, which I'm sure many of you guys were there for, there was a bunch of great conversation in the chat. So if at any point during this presentation you have questions or even comments, please put that stuff in the chat because we have a whole team back here reading that. So yeah, I know vaping can be a topic that a lot of people have questions about. So yeah, if at any point you have questions, put that in the chat.
Yeah. And then you'll see that our PowerPoints are real, well, they're hand-drawn. Just to be honest, they're hand-drawn. Because when we do these presentations live, we don't have a canned presentation. We have all these different little blocks and segments. So we could be talking about marijuana and then kids want to know about stuff about the lungs. And instead of having this track that we run on, we quickly change. So today we're going to be doing our vaping information. It's probably about 50% of our vaping information that we have. And then, if at any point you have a question and it changes the direction, we're good with that. We're used to working. Yeah, we're used to working with junior high kids. So at some point we'll be talking about vaping, and the next thing you know, why can't you run in dreams? And like we actually know this stuff because it keeps coming up. But so back in my day, I feel so old when I say that. But back in my day, remember we didn't know what was inside cigarettes. We didn't, and we saw doctors prescribing them and all the things that happen with cigarettes we're now seeing with marijuana about being in a medicine and doctors prescribing it. And
wait,
there's a point.
Just a quick pause. You remember doctors prescribing them?
I was on the other side of that, but I remember that from my mom.
Whoa.
Like when she was pregnant, they're like to calm her down, smoke a cigarette.
Sorry, to me that just seems like
out there, right?
So long ago.
Yeah. And your kids are going to be like, they used to prescribe marijuana? And you'll be like, yeah. So remember, we didn't know what was inside cigarettes. And when they would come and do presentations at our school, they said, there's a bunch of chemicals inside them. But understand this, because I think this clears it up so well. During the 70s, the tobacco industry had this great quote, and they said, we're in the business of confusion. And somebody had said that, and it's so true, because what happens is if you're given 2 bits of information, okay, let's try one out. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is great for breakfast, okay?
It's full of vitamins.
Full of vitamins, right? And it's part of a healthy breakfast. Along with 2 eggs, bacon, toast, orange juice, coffee.
Multivitamin.
Yeah. And then you get another piece of information that's like, Cinnamon Toast Crunch isn't that good. And you don't know which one to choose, but you like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, so your brain's going to default to the safe one. And it's just the way that kids' brains work. And we have to understand, I'm going to talk all about this tomorrow, and it's one of my favorite subjects. Kids hear information different than adults do, okay? And that's because of the frontal lobe part of their brain. So the frontal lobe part of the brain, like Brooke described in the last one, the brain develops from the back to the front. For some animals, it develops from the top down. For other animals, like fish and stuff, when they're born, their brain is set. There's not going to be, they're not going to make new decisions and stuff like that. So it's just set. And so for like birds, that's why you see birds that build the nest today have built the same type of nest way back in the day. All right, information you didn't need to have. Interesting. And so what happens is kids' brains have a tendency to default a different way than adults' brains do, okay? So they do not have a frontal lobe that is functioning yet until right around age 23, okay? So kids will do things and adults will be like, that's really weird. And so let's talk about the frontal lobe, because this is how it's going to describe how we present information, how you should present information, and why vaping looks so good to kids. Okay.
Definitely.
So when we're talking with kids about not having the frontal lobe working, you see all the kids are like, no, my brain is completely working. And teachers like, no, they're not. But let me ask you this. Now think about when you were 15 years old, okay? And when I ask kids this, man, hands go up immediately. So the question on the table is, when's the last time you have done something unbelievably dangerous, crazy, or really dumb with your best friend, right? And you just see kids' hands
Instantly.
shoot up instantly.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask the question, how many of you that crazy, dangerous, dumb thing you did involved fire? And you see all these hands go up and kids look around.
And kids are like, oh, remember when we did that thing?
Yeah. How many of you, when I ask the kids, how many of you, when you did that crazy thing, had an adult come running up to you full speed, and how many adults have done this? You look at the kid in the face and you holler at him, why did you do that? And the kid responds with,
I don't know.
Right? And then I'll ask the kids, how many of you have ever grabbed your best friend, shook him by the shoulders, looked at them in the face and said, we almost died, and you were happy about that, right? And so the problem is kids don't have a frontal lobe that's functioning yet.
Right.
Let me show you, well, for adults, it's going to be different, but for all of us, I'm going to ask you a frontal lobe question, okay? And this frontal lobe question is going to be directly geared towards your frontal lobe. I'm going to ask you this question. It's going to hit your frontal lobe. Your brain's going to make a real quick decision, and a word is going to come out of your mouth, okay? Here we go. Get ready. Frontal lobe question. Ketchup ice cream, good or gross?
Ugh, gross.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and put something in the chat when I said ketchup ice cream. Okay. Now, Brooke, have you ever tasted ketchup ice cream?
No.
No. Have you ever heard of ketchup ice cream?
No.
Have you ever cooked ketchup ice cream?
No. Somehow it sounds worse.
Yeah.
Cooked.
Like a recipe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
2 tablespoons.
Yeah. See, so we're getting it all in. So yeah. Ketchup ice. Now, how would you know ketchup ice cream is gross if you've never tasted it or heard about it before?
It just sounds gross.
Right. It sounds gross. So when I said the word ketchup, what happened is your frontal lobe grabbed the flavor of ketchup, and then it grabbed the flavor, whatever kind of ice cream you like, and it stuck it together inside your head and said, gross, not going to work. Mm-hmm. Now, understand this. Human beings have the ability to do that. Animals don't. I could mix a whole pile of different types of foods that I would not eat, but a dog would be like, hey, that's great. So our little frontal lobe part right there has the ability to predict the future, right? So all of you that are watching right now, in your head, you could make a sandwich from your kitchen, right? So go ahead and try real quick, make a sandwich. And
we don't have bread.
We don't have bread, right? Right. So she did that inside your head. So understand, everything we do happens in our frontal lobe first. Now, kids are willing to do dangerous things, and they see dangerous things as fun stuff. If you're taking notes, write this down. Kids see dangerous things as fun. So when we present information to them, talking about the dangers of vaping, the dangers of alcohol, the dangers of marijuana, what happens is an adult brain goes, ooh, we need to stay away from that. Mm-hmm. Where a kid's brain goes, hey, that seems pretty cool.
Right.
So in my office, let's say I have 5 adults here and 2 teenage interns, right? And at a meeting, I say, hey, everybody, down the road about a half a mile, police officer hides underneath that tree. Don't drive fast, right? All my adult people are going to go, yeah, boy, we better not drive fast. Let's go slow right there, right? What are the high school kids going to say? I don't know if that's true or not. Let's test that theory out. Boom, right? Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Because I know for adults, you're like, yeah, that's why teenagers are so crazy, which is true. But it's actually super beneficial for humans that that's how our brains work.
Right.
Teenagers are actually the ones that kept us alive as human species. Because way back, imagine when we were hunter-gatherers, we're all sitting around a fire, right? Not sure where our next meal's going to come from. And then someone comes running out of the bushes and they're like, hey, I saw this big, huge thing over there covered with fur, really sharp teeth made out of meat. I got these 10 sharp sticks. Who wants to help me go kill it?
Right.
What are all the older people of the group going to say?
No, thank you. I am going to sit here and make some really good decisions for the tribe.
Right? What are all those crazy teenagers going to say? Yeah!
Let's go!
Bring that new invention fire!
Fire! You know what? That's ruining kids' attention.
Yeah, it's the latest technology, but it's really ruining their attention span.
I could sit and watch a log all day. They can barely watch a twig.
Oh, I know. And then they just watch twig after twig after twig after twig, just throwing them in the fire.
Look at that twig.
And so teenagers were the ones who would do dangerous stuff. They'd see if, we could jump over that thing. They'd test those berries to see if they were poisonous,
Right.
And so they were the ones that actually kept us progressing as humans.
Right.
But nowadays, it kind of works against teenagers and that's what ends up getting them in trouble,
Right.
And stuff like that. But it was super beneficial. And when we talk to a lot of teenagers, they don't see that their brains aren't fully functioning.
Right.
But I know I'm 24 years old. So for me, I remember feeling like the moment when my brain kicked on. And I know for a lot of you guys, it'll seem kind of silly, but it was just like a few years ago where I remember being in high school and, my bank account would get like really low, but I didn't want to check my bank account, or my grades would be really low and I didn't want to check them. And then I would know that I have like $1 in my bank account, but I really want that ice cream that's like 89 cents, so I just wouldn't check it. And then I went to college and I got a bunch of student loans and they would be calling me every single day and I would just ignore the calls. And then one day my brain was like, ding. And I was like, oh, if I pay my student loans, they will stop calling.
Right. And so that makes sense to an adult. Like that's how it works. But for a student, a young person, it doesn't work that way. So when you're talking to kids about drugs and alcohol, and this is just a little sampling for tomorrow, if you present it in a dangerous way, they don't take it the way you think they're taking it.
Right.
They take it as, I don't believe I can actually die from that. This information was actually discovered back in the 80s. There used to be wrestling, and there was a thing called Give 'em the Chair.
Oh, yeah.
You've probably seen that on Shrek, where they hit the person, and a kid did that to his sister, and he killed his sister.
Whoa.
And they thought, why can't he put that together? And so all this information, and the tobacco industry knows this. They know the more we present cigarettes or e-cigarette, jewels, and vapes in a dangerous way, the more appealing it looks to kids. So remember all that. So back in my day, we didn't know what was inside cigarettes. And it wasn't until like the 1990s when the tobacco industry was sued and the judge is looking at all these guys with these perfect suits on. And he said the one question we all were waiting to hear, if any of you watch those boring trials. I actually watched them. They said, is there nicotine inside your cigarettes? All the guys looked around, they huddled up, they discussed for a minute. They had a lawyer walk out and give a very vague answer. And he says, yes, we do put nicotine inside our cigarettes. They didn't tell you the amount. They didn't tell you the danger. They just said yes. And all of a sudden, that was brand new information that nicotine is inside cigarettes. And the tobacco industry was sued based on putting nicotine in it. So when the vape company came around, they said, we don't want to make the mistakes our grandfather made with cigarettes. We're going to do things different. They said, the one thing we're going to do different is we are going to tell every single person that this product contains nicotine, and we in no way are going to attempt to hide this information. So anytime you go to a gas station, anytime you go to any place that sells vapes or cigarettes, on the front window of that establishment, it will say this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is a highly addictive chemical. And so they don't even try to hide it.
Right. And it's usually a pretty big sign
Yeah,
too.
black and white.
Because what they found was if they say it enough, eventually people will just basically stop hearing it.
Right. And so, and then the question that is begged to be asked, well, what is nicotine? How, all of that. So let me say we ran this little contest, okay? And I sent everybody, well, you guys are probably home since we're all virtual, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to think of a product in your house that contains nicotine in it. But here's the rules to the game, okay? It cannot be an e-cigarette. It cannot be a regular cigarette. It cannot be a cigar. It cannot be a nicotine patch. It can be nicotine gum. It can't
Chewing
be
tobacco.
chewing tobacco. It can't be that one brother-in-law that smokes cigarettes all the time. What is something inside your house that contains nicotine? Okay. Now, when we do this with kids, I love the answers that we get. All the junior high kids will say stuff like chocolate is
That's
always the first one. Yeah. Because I think they're thinking, about the addictive quality to it. So yeah, they definitely say chocolate. What else do they say?
They always end up saying coffee.
Right.
And all the teachers
Tomatoes.
are like, and we're like, no, not coffee. And they're like, whew.
Yeah.
Tomatoes. So interesting tidbit.
Yes.
Again, information you don't need, but you're gonna get. Tomatoes, potatoes, and the deadly nightshade family of plants do contain like a tiny amount of nicotine, because that's basically the poison that they use that kills people. But you would have to eat like 10 tons of potatoes in like an hour to get the amount of nicotine in like one cigarette.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, well, when it comes to McDonald's French fries, maybe.
Yeah.
So tomatoes, potatoes, deadly nightshade, technically correct answers, but unfortunately not the answers we're looking for.
Right. Check this out. Oh, you know what the good one is? Coffee. When the kids say coffee, all the teachers are like, no, please didn't. Like, no, not coffee.
For some reason, they also say like the stove.
Stove.
And I'm no idea where that answer comes from.
So here's our first slide. Okay. Our first very creative slide from our director of operations.
You can find nicotine inside. Dun, dun, dun.
Bug spray.
Bug spray.
Yeah. If you look on the back of a can of Raid, there's going to be a derivative that's going to come off of nicotine, and it will either begin with NIC or end in TINE. Now, nicotine, like THC, is a type of poison that the plant produces, but it produces it at a very low level. If you wanted a natural pesticide for your plants, what you could do is you could take old cigarette butts, actually put them in water and a couple drops of dish soap, put it in a spray bottle, and it works as a type of pesticide. But nicotine is a type of bug spray or type of poison you find in bug spray. And you can see my little bugs that are drawn there. Kids really like that.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, you got the little spider going down, looking at his best friend, like, Joey, what's wrong? I don't feel so good. Yeah.
And I got stink lines coming off of me.
That's his spirit leaving him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like how one's a spider and one's a beetle. That's nice.
Yeah, it's forbidden love.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, you have that. Okay. So now everybody watching at one time or another has sprayed a bug, correct? You can get off the slide now. One time or another has sprayed a bug. And I'm sure all of you that are watching have sprayed a bug with other things, whatever you have around, right? So you come home from work, you lay down and you look up, and on the corner of the ceiling right there is this spider licking his chops, and he has his eyes on you, right?
And you know he's plotting something.
Right. So you're going to find something to spray that bug with. Now, I have sprayed bugs with all different types of stuff. I sprayed them with Windex. I sprayed it with one of those air things that you get.
Febreze?
No, the things for your keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Febreze. I've done that in the bathroom, room deodorants. I sprayed it with all this stuff, or I think bugs like Axe body spray because they're like, hey, thank you, turns them into Elvis. And so, yeah. And so it doesn't kill the bug, right? So you spray the bug with hairspray, gets all sticky, drops down. And then a couple of weeks later, it comes back with a worse attitude than it had before. Now, the reason why is those are not designed to kill bugs. But a can of Raid, which contains a portion of nicotine, a type of nicotine inside it, does. Now, here's how nicotine kills bugs, okay? Everything inside a little cockroach is like working together, okay? So the heart, and I'm going to just use terms of, maybe not apply for cockroach, but like its little heart is beating, right? Pushing something through the circulatory system. Its little one-track brain is trying to figure out where food is. Its little legs are all working together. So everything is like working together, okay? Right. Now, if you spray a bug with nicotine, what happens is that nicotine lands on that bug's really hard shell, and it very quickly penetrates the lining of that shell. It goes inside, and what it does is it breaks the signal to everything working inside of it, okay? So now the heart doesn't know how to work with the lungs, or the brain doesn't know how to, and so the legs would all start working independently. Okay? Now, if you took one pack of cigarettes, one regular pack of cigarettes, 20 cigarettes, and you removed all of the nicotine out of it, right? You'd have a little over a drop, not much more. If you took that nicotine and you put it on your skin or on your tongue, that would be enough to kill you. There's enough nicotine inside one pack of cigarettes, to kill you. Now, kids always ask, well, why don't you die? Because you're putting that poison in your system really slow.
Right.
Now, if somebody were to smoke an entire pack of cigarettes at one time, they're going to overload their system with nicotine, and the potential of dying is there because it's so high. Now, here's the thing, okay? You put that nicotine on my skin, and it's going to break the signal. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. No, you go ahead.
Okay, so it's going to break the signal. Here's the beauty of being a human being. Every part of our body is working together as one, okay? So my eyes work with my hands work with my mouth work with my feet work with my ears. It all works as one, okay? Now for a fish, they operate different. You touch the tail of a fish and it's going to operate differently than if you touch the nose, but it's going to be categorized. So it's not going to break away from that. So the thing is, if you put enough nicotine on my skin, it's going to go in and it's going to separate all those signals. So my heart may start beating fast because it doesn't know what's going on, but my lungs will be taking in less oxygen. My brain will not function correctly. And so what'll happen is it won't send the correct signals out to the other things. So the problem is there's times when I need my hand to function like my eyes. So I'm operating a vehicle. I need chapstick. I reach down in the middle and I pull out chapstick without having to look. That's because it all works together. But if you were to separate it out, that's eventually where everything will collapse and it'll die.
Right. And so the question that we always get is,
go ahead and put that slide back up real quick.
Why would your brain get addicted to something that is poisonous?
Yeah.
How does a poison cause the addiction?
Great question.
Well, what happens is, just like my dad was saying, when you add too much nicotine to the system, it separates out all of those connections. But when you add just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit, like a 20th of a drop, what happens is that tiny bit of nicotine goes in, and instead of separating out all of the connections, it just separates out this one super important connection in your brain. Now, I'm going to make this super easy for you guys to understand, but if you take your index finger and place it right in the center of your forehead, right in the center of your forehead right there, if you went back and touched your brain, you would hit something that we are going to call a go button.
And go and change the slide.
Then if you move it over to right above your left eye, you're going to hit a stop button. So go button, stop button, go, stop, go, stop. Go and stop button. Now, these buttons are super important in your brain. You can go ahead and pull that off. They're responsible for a lot of your motivations and things that you like to do, but they're also responsible for kind of like your quick reactions to things.
Right.
So I'm sure everybody watching this at one point or another has been in the situation where you've had like a really good jump scare, right? Maybe it was in person, maybe it was a really scary movie, maybe it was one of those videos where that car is driving down the road and then like a ghost pops up, you know?
Yeah.
But you've had a really good jump scare. Now, when you get really scared, you have some kind of reaction. I scream when I get scared, which my husband does not love because he has misophonia, so he gets pretty annoyed. What's your reaction?
I'm a puncher.
Are you?
Yeah, when something scares me, I just want to punch it for some reason, which is never a good reaction.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to learn to do the karate thing, so it looks like I know karate. Yeah.
Some people, jump. Some people take off running. Some people might even start crying.
Yeah.
But I actually discovered a brand new reaction I had never seen before. Because a couple Halloweens ago, we went to Universal Studios Halloween nights, and we took my niece, and she was really little at the time. I think she was like 10 or 11. So we go with my niece, and I'm telling her, like, this is going to be really scary. I'm not sure if you're ready for this, but, I'm going to let you decide where we go first, because it is going to be super scary. So my niece is like, okay, I'm ready. So my niece decides that she wants to go to the Killer Clown from Outer Space section. Yeah. No way, right? I am like, nope. But she's like, please, please, please take me. So I'm like, okay. So we go to the Killer Clowns from Outer Space section. And as we're going through this maze, it is so unbelievably scary. And I think it was way scarier than she thought it was going to be, because there's all these different clowns, and there's like clowns with messed up faces. There's clowns with fangs. There's clowns covered with blood. There's clowns with machetes. Yeah. There's all these different lights and sounds, and the air is just heavy with the scent of cotton candy and fear, and it is so scary. So my niece is going through like all the stages of getting scared. So first she's kind of jumping, then she's kind of screaming. At one point she takes off running. At one point she's even trying to punch with the clowns and having to hold your little arms down like, no, we're gonna get in trouble, you know?
Right.
And my poor little niece is just getting so scared. Then we turn this one corner and we see all of these clowns standing there, like they're, like they've been waiting for this moment their whole lives.
Right.
And my poor little niece at this point is so scared. She grabs my hand, and the next thing I know, I hear this thud, and I look down, and my niece passed out. It was so scary that she passed out. Now, what happened to my niece's brain is as she's getting scared,
go back that slide.
Her brain's hitting that go button. You know, when you get scared and you get that rush of like kind of happy emotions, like you kind of laugh after.
Right.
So her brain's hitting that go button. It's saying, yes, this is fun. This is great. I love this. I want to do this again. This is awesome. Then what happened was it got to a point where it was too scary for her. Her brain said, you know what? This is not a good idea anymore. I want to stop. It slams down on that stop button. That is how I found out that my niece is a passer-outer when she gets scared. But what happens when you add nicotine to the system is that nicotine goes in and it hits that go button. It says, yes, this is fun. This is great. I love this. I want to do this again. But it separates out that connection. So at no point is the brain able to say, you know what? This is not a good idea anymore. I want to stop. And that's what makes nicotine so addictive. Two things to remember about nicotine. Number one, nicotine's a poison. Number two, nicotine separates out body parts.
Right.
So when you add nicotine to the system, that nicotine goes in and it says, yes, this is great. I love this. But it doesn't know how to say, you know what, this isn't a good idea anymore.
Right.
And that's why you see people who are addicted to things like cigarettes who have been smoking for a while and they want to quit. And sometimes they'll make a list of reasons to quit and they'll have like 758 reasons to quit. And they'll be great reasons too. You know, like their doctor wants them to stop, their family wants them to stop, they wake up coughing every morning, their eyes are yellow, their fingers are yellow, they have a hard time breathing, all of these things that they know can happen to them, and they'll want to quit, but the brain doesn't know how to say, you know what, this is not a good idea anymore, I want to stop.
Right. So we worked with a bunch of people and had a bunch of people that used to speak for us. And we had one guy that was one of those guys that had done all kinds of drugs, lived underneath a bridge, you know, divorce, car accident, all the stories that you hear. And he goes, man, that makes so much sense because I quit heroin, I quit meth, I quit drinking, I quit, you know, and he names some other drugs. He goes, but I can't quit cigarettes. And he goes, that makes so much sense because, and the tobacco industry knows this, they know that nicotine goes in and it separates out those two different parts. So at no point does your brain ever get I need to stop this. Now, what's terrible is the tobacco industry has really learned to crossbreed those tobacco plants to kick that nicotine level up super high. They have kicked the nicotine level up so high in tobacco plants that I was just reading an article that bees will land on tobacco plants to pollinate them, and they absorb too much nicotine in their system through their feet and through how they're collecting pollen, and they never make it back to the hive because the poison's way too high. Yes, somebody's back there waiting for them, like, where's Dad at? Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, it makes it even worse. So the thing is, you can become addicted very quickly to that. Now, in my day, back when they would come in and do presentations in our gym and we'd all sit there listening about cigarettes, here's one thing that I found out back then that I've looked up several times. All it takes is 3 cigarettes. That's it. 3 cigarettes, 3 regular cigarettes to form an addiction. So back in my day in the 80s, when a kid was in high school, if he got a pack of cigarettes and he smoked 1 cigarette on Monday, he coughed it up, he thought it was terrible, thought it was gross. Then on Tuesday, he's recovering. Wednesday, he smokes his 2nd cigarette. Thursday, he smokes his 3rd cigarette. When he smokes that 4th cigarette on Friday, more than likely the tobacco industry had their hooks in them. If that student finished 1 pack of cigarettes, more than likely they owned him. And if he smoked the 2nd pack, then they definitely had a smoker for a long time. Now, I don't know how many of you or what your ages are, but back in the 80s and 90s, they used to give away free packs of cigarettes all the time. So you could look at a magazine. My dad used to get Field and Stream, and it would have a coupon in there, buy 1 pack, get 1 pack free. Whoa. And you thought, oh man, that's a great deal. But all they were doing was getting people hooked. talked to a gentleman who served in World War II, and then his son served in some other wars. And they said whenever they'd give out cigarettes during World War II, they'd always give them out in packs of 3, like 3 little cigarettes. And so they knew way back then. Yeah.
That feels so wrong that they would do that. But, they're still doing the same kind of stuff today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we had a student, talk about that kind of stuff, like the addictive quality of nicotine and stuff. And so we've had students email us as young as 8th grade, and they said, do I have an addiction? How do I know if I have an addiction? And so if you're taking notes, go ahead and write this down, because here's a little test that we'll give kids. And we had this one student write to us, said, how do I know if I have an addiction? Here's what you need to do. Just pick a day. I'm just going to say Sunday night, okay? I told him on Sunday night, put your vape wherever you normally put it at night, okay? And then as soon as you put it in the drawer or wherever you put it, say these words out loud. I am not going to use my vape again till Thursday morning. Now, we just did a presentation in California, and when I said that, I saw several kids like, there's no way I could do that. They couldn't even say the words out loud. Yeah. And I said, when you say those words out loud, see how you feel inside immediately, okay? So if you get a feeling like, no big deal, you're probably safe, you don't have an addiction. But if you get this feeling, whoa, I am really going to have to try to figure this out, this is going to be tough, you may have an addiction, okay? Now, this information isn't designed to scare anybody. It's just to let you know where you are, okay? So then Monday morning when you wake up and you don't think about it, you get ready, you go to school, no big deal. Your friends are smoking, you don't even think about it. You go home Tuesday or Monday night, nothing. Tuesday, you don't even think about it. Wednesday, you don't even think about it. Thursday, you don't even think about it. Friday, you're like, oh yeah, I was going to use my vape again. And more than likely, you're pretty safe not having an addiction. But if it goes the other way around, where you wake up Monday morning, like you reach for it and you're like, oh my gosh, oh man, I said I wasn't going to use it. So I really got to fight it. The whole time you're getting ready, you're thinking, oh, I want to use my vape. I want to use my vape. I better get out of here. Then you go to school and, your friends are using it or they're offering it. And you're like, no, I can't. I said I wouldn't. And so Monday is just this big, huge struggle all day. And all you can think about is your vape. I would be a little bit concerned. Tuesday, you wake up, you're feeling terrible. You really want to use your vape. That's all your brain can think about. And then, you go to school Tuesday, all your friends are bothering you. Your teachers are irritating you. You come home and you're like, why has everybody turned into complete beep, and you're like, I just need to vape. I said, more than likely you have an addiction. Yeah. And so this poor 8th grade student wrote back to us and he said, I tried doing what you said 3 times and I cannot stop. He said, but here's the problem with your information. He said, I smoke a vape or a liquid that says 0% nicotine on it, contains no nicotine.
Right.
He said, is there another product inside that has the addiction? Because this one doesn't have nicotine in it. Now, this was several years ago. So we looked into this and found out this is the worst part of the vaping presentation that I hate because it's awful. What the vaping industry does. So you looked into that, right?
Yeah, I did. And what I found was this study where these scientists had wanted to see just what is in these products. So they took a bunch of different brands of nicotine-free vape and they tested them just to see what was in there. And what they found was 98% of these nicotine-free vapes still contained large amounts of nicotine.
Now, that's a big number.
Yeah, that's almost every single one.
Yeah, man, if I scored something like that on a test, I'd be happy.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be like, whoa, almost every single one. I did great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here it's a little bit sad. So when I heard that, I thought, how is it possible that these vapes say 0% nicotine when in reality there is a huge amount of nicotine in there? But it's almost like, Dad, do you like Tic Tacs?
Oh, I do. I love those little videos. I'm watching those little videos all day. I'm learning to do the dances and stuff.
No, not TikTok. Tic Tac.
What? Yeah. Next slide.
It's like, that's one of the scripted jokes.
Yeah.
But if you get a box of Tic Tacs and you look on that box, somewhere on that box, it's going to say sugar free. It's going to say 0 grams of sugar.
Next slide.
Under the nutrition facts, there probably won't even be a section for sugar. But then under the ingredients, the very first ingredient, which means that the majority of what's in there is sugar. Now, sorry to break it to all you Tic Tac lovers out there, But Tic Tacs are basically just pure sugar.
Mhm.
I think the number is like 93.8%
That is correct.
sugar.
93.8.
93.8% sugar, but they're allowed to say that they're sugar-free because technically each Tic Tac has less than 1 gram of sugar.
Mhm.
The FDA says anything with less than 1 gram of sugar is allowed to be considered sugar-free. So these products that are basically pure sugar are allowed to be considered sugar-free.
Yeah. Now, when they did that, I bet they were talking about like a slice of bread.
Yeah, or even like a whole loaf of bread if it has less than 1 gram. It's not that much.
Yeah, it can be sugar-free. Yeah.
Exactly. But in a product where sugar is basically the only thing in there and it's basically just mint flavored sugar, it's a little bit different.
Right.
Now, the tobacco industry looks at that and they're like, whoa, we love that kind of math, right? That's the kind of math that makes companies look good. So here's the rule for the tobacco industry.
Next slide.
If a vape juice contains 19 cigarettes worth of nicotine or less, they're allowed to be considered absolutely nicotine free. It's only if a vape juice contains 20 cigarettes worth of nicotine or more, they have to tell you that there's nicotine in there.
Right.
So unfortunately, for that student, he's using a product.
And
you can go ahead and pull him off.
Yeah.
He's using a product that he believes is nicotine free, something that has been told to him won't cause an addiction.
Mhm.
And inside that vape juice, there could be 5 cigarettes worth of nicotine. There could be 16 cigarettes worth of nicotine. There's absolutely no way to know, but more than likely there's going to be nicotine in there.
Right.
Now, here's the part that really frustrates me about that.
Mhm.
That student was trying to make a better decision for his life.
Right.
He was still vaping, but at least he was trying to make a decision by vaping something that's not going to cause an addiction. And the tobacco industry is selling him this product, saying this is going to be safe, this isn't going to hurt you, this isn't going to cause an addiction, when in reality, all of that is a complete lie.
Right, right. It's like when I switched to Sun Chips from Doritos. I'm like, these are healthier. Yeah.
But the bag is crinklier.
Yeah, and it says the word sun in it, so that made me feel better. Yeah. So the thing is, you're actually with a vape getting more nicotine inside your system.
Right.
And so let's say back in the day when you would smoke a cigarette and the cigarette would be sitting in an ashtray and that little line of smoke coming out, that was like burning tar, nicotine, carbon monoxide. So it wasn't going inside your system.
About a third of what was in that cigarette would get lost in that part.
Yeah, a third. So when I brought it up to my mouth and pulled in on that, it was going down into my system. So there was a lot of stuff that was lost in that. Well, like you said, a third, because it was burning off. Talk about vapes and how.
When it comes to vapes, because none of those chemicals are being lost through the back of it, 100% of those chemicals are going into the system. So if a pack of cigarettes has the same amount of nicotine as a Juul pod, if you smoked that pack of cigarettes and you vaped that Juul pod, you'll get more nicotine from the Juul pod than you would from the pack of cigarettes, because 100% of those chemicals are absorbed. Whereas with the cigarettes, a third of it is lost. Right.
So the question we get from kids, because it seems like vaping is better for you than smoking cigarettes because of how your lungs look and stuff. It's actually just as bad, if not worse, because you're getting more nicotine inside your system. And so any questions so far? Because we're going to jump into, again, a little bit of the history. So if you have a question or something like that, go ahead and put that in. Anything you want to add while we wait for a second?
I don't.
Oh, we got a screamer. That's good.
Same.
It's so funny because your niece passes out, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen, because we had kids ask us this question about passing out, like those goats that pass out. Like, how is that even like, evolutionary, beneficial? Yeah. But I guess some of the animals that hunt them hunt by vision. And so when the animal passes out, they lose their vision. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions. So let's go to that next slide, because I want to talk a little bit about cigarettes. And if you look on here, in the world from cigarettes, we have over 7 million people that are going to die from cigarette use all across the world. And in the United States alone, it works out to 484,000 people every year. Now, that's pretty consistent. It's 484,000. What that works out to is 1,300 people a day, or 54 people every hour. So while we are here doing this, we're going to be here for about an hour and a half. So we're looking at about 75 people will pass away from cigarette use. Now, this is stuff that you can directly connect back to cigarettes.
Cigarettes and tobacco.
Cigarettes and tobacco, right? And vaping and all that. And so it's directly connected back. So 54 people every hour. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So please understand this. The tobacco industry doesn't look and go, oh my gosh, 484,000 people. That's terrible, right? They say, oh my gosh, 484,000 revenue streams are dying, right? So they don't see them as people. Now, let me ask the real obvious question. Is the tobacco industry going after somebody my age, or are they going after somebody that's 15 or 16? Right?
Yeah.
Definitely 15 or 16. If I were to attempt to start smoking today, it would be so unbelievably difficult because I maybe could smoke one cigarette, but there's no way I can make it through two cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I know even when we went to a wedding or a bachelor party, like I took 2 puffs off a cigar, and I know you can't take that smoke off. I just felt terrible.
Yeah, even without taking it into your lungs.
Even without taking it into your lungs. Maybe it was a cheap cigar I was smoking, but yeah, no, I don't know. But the thing is, it's just terrible. So they're not looking at an older person like me to start smoking because they know maybe I'll buy 1 pack, but there's no way I'm buying 2.
Yeah.
But if they can get a young person to start using it, they definitely will. That's where all those flavors come in.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We always ask the students, how do you think they're marketing to young people? And we've never had a group not get the answer, and it is the flavors.
Flavors, yeah. At one point, there was over 8,000 different flavors, and some of them are crazy. You had Rocky Road, you had Cheerios, you had Trix, you had Lucky Charms, which are all the popular kid cereals. And then you started to get some really weird ones like Hulk Tears, Unicorn Farts. These are actual flavors that we saw. What else was out there?
I know they made some weird ones like crab legs.
Crab legs was a flavor.
Black pepper.
There was one that came on, and I think it like tipped the market over. They came out with a flavor in Southern California that went crazy that was called McDonald's French fries. And so kids went nuts over that flavor, and a lot of kids were starting to use it, and it was just a flavor. I thought, man, that's terrible, man. McDonald's French fry flavor. Yeah, that clown's trying to kill you 2 ways, man. Diabetes or lung cancer, man. So he's really going after
clown's out to get you. However he can do it.
Way more than the clown from It. Yeah.
Or the killer clowns from outer space.
Yeah. And so here's a little bit of the history. Go ahead and put the next slide up there. History of what vapes look like. Okay, so we're going to go from the right to the left. So what the industry did, I put it up too soon. Go ahead and pull it off real quick. Sorry. So what the industry did is they wanted to find out, are these products, are they addictive or not? This is awful what they did. So they developed a whole bunch of these back in the day, e-cigarettes, and they dumped them into third world countries to see what the reaction was going to be. Now, these are countries that didn't have a lot of regulation on that kind of stuff. So you got a third world country, and you have an individual, and I'm just going to make up some numbers here, that spends $100 on food a week, or let's say a month, okay?
Okay.
And so they spend $100, and these vapes are $5. So they wanted to see how much would they spend to take out of the food budget to purchase these e-cigarettes. And they found out people were willing to purchase vape liquids or e-cigarettes above purchasing food. Isn't that terrible?
Whoa.
So that's how they discovered the addictive quality super high. So then what they did is they thought, well, okay, they're addictive. That's the one thing that we need. So we get the repeat business. So let's start selling these in Europe. Go ahead and put that back in there. So they started selling e-cigarettes in Europe. Now, if you're looking from the right to the left, those first 2 right there were marketed in Europe. And what they said in Europe is they said, hey, because there's a little bit more of a health conscience that happens in Europe. And so they said, hey, you probably want to quit smoking, right? Europeans were like, yes. They said, then what you need to do is you need to switch to these e-cigarettes. So they made them look exactly like regular cigarettes. And so what they found in Europe is people made the switch really quick from regular cigarettes to e-cigarettes. So then they said, boy, if it's working in Europe, let's send it to the United States. So then they came into the United States with the same 2 type of cigarettes right there, e-cigarettes, and they marketed them the same way. And they said, hey, Americans, you probably are concerned about your health and you want to quit smoking. So switch over to these electronic cigarettes, right? And what do you think the people in America said? Nobody tells me when to smoke or when not to smoke. I'm not going to make the switch. I don't need that kind of, and it's just the commercialism of it and the campaign fell completely flat in the United States. They couldn't get them to sell. Nobody wanted them. And people are like, hey, if I want to smoke in my car, I'm going to smoke in my car. There was like no kind of restriction.
Right.
So then all of a sudden they said, boy, these aren't selling in the United States. We better switch it up. So then they switched it up. And that's where this blue came in. And they said, hey, Americans, nobody should tell you when to smoke and when not to smoke. Nobody should make fun of you because you smell like cigarettes. If you're at a party, you shouldn't have to break away from your friends to smoke a cigarette because they want to smell something good. Boom. That's where blue came in. And so blue was the very first one in the United States that took off like a rocket because they had celebrities endorsing this. And the celebrities were saying, nobody should tell you when to smoke or when not to smoke. You should be able to do it whenever you want. Now it's possible to do that, and you don't have to smell like cigarettes anymore. So then the next three were where the flavors started to come out. Again, over 8,000 different flavors. From what I saw, there may have been more, but crazy flavors that really appeal to kids. And so gummy bears, all that kind of stuff. Then the next one over, which is the red and black one right there, was the very...
And the purple one.
And the purple one, yeah. Is where you could start to change the inside a little bit and customize it because they know that, you know, Americans like that kind of thing. And so if you look at the purple one right there, you could see in the top, you could remove that clear plastic. You could take out that little round part. You could put one that's shorter so you get a lighter puff, or put one in there that's bigger to get a bigger puff. And then they started to introduce all the tricks that you could do with cigarettes or with e-cigarettes. And so it was that one right there. Now, the last one is the one where they started to get in trouble. So they wanted to completely move away from anything that looked like a regular cigarette. So they moved to that last one. And the last one caused them a lot of problems because it was so well insulated. And do you remember the chemical that's in microwave popcorn?
Diacetyl.
Diacetyl. And so what happens is diacetyl was in there, but it would get kind of gummy and sticky. So the little flaps that turned it on would get stuck on. And then that big, huge black one in the top part, you can change it. You can add different cartridges and stuff, were the ones that were exploding inside people's pockets. So those only lasted a little while and they completely moved away from it. So then they moved to this next one. Go ahead and talk about the next one.
So this next one was the first one to really get popular with youth. And so it's Juul. And Juul was started by two guys up in San Francisco, one of whom used to work for Apple. So he had kind of helped with their design and their marketing, trying to get each, next iPhone to be just different enough to where you feel like you really need it,
Right.
And so Apple is pretty good with that. And so when they started this company, they wanted this product not to feel anything like a drug. They didn't want it to feel like an e-cigarette. They wanted, no connection to that. They wanted it to feel like a piece of technology. They wanted young people to feel like, okay, I've got my iPhone, I've got my AirPods, I've got my, iPad, I've got my Juul. And it's just something that they carry around with them all day, just like their iPhones.
Right.
So if you look at it right there, that top part, the black part is the cartridge that you can take off and put a new one on, and that's where all the flavors are. That little light indicates that it's on, and then the bottom part down there is where you would charge it, and you would plug it straight into like a computer. It had like a USB charger.
Right. And
I remember, man, that was so different from anything else. And we would have teachers who wouldn't recognize these products, but they would see students with something plugged into their computer, think that it's like a USB flash drive. We even had one teacher tell us that their student dropped their Juul and the teacher picked it up and handed it back to them thinking it was a flash drive.
Right.
So it really looked nothing like a drug. It looked like a piece of technology. Now, here's one of the big problems with Juul is that since there's no buttons, it's so easy to use. So I know you have a friend who uses e-cigarettes, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he just all day just holds it in his hand because it's so small and just puffs on it and puffs on it and puffs on it. And it's so easy to just keep using it and using it and using it. Now, two problems with that. Number one is something called continual use.
Right.
So I know that this seminar is virtual, but we've all been to in-person seminars, right?
Oh, yeah.
And when you go to those seminars, This is my favorite part of a seminar. And they have like little snacks on the side.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something I miss in the virtual world. But sometimes they'll have those little bags of chips, right? Now, when I go to a seminar like that, I take one of those bags of chips, pop it open, eat it, and I think that was not enough chips. So I grab a second bag, pop it open, eat it, right? But no one grabs 3 bags of chips.
Yeah, and then you stuff the one bag in the other one, kind of hide it.
Exactly, so no one can tell.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with 3 bags of chips.
No.
That's too much. But I'm sure we've all been in the situation where you go to Costco and you get that huge bag of Doritos, you know?
It comes with a backpack.
Yeah.
Lift with your legs.
It's like a team lift.
Yeah.
Like someone has to help you carry it to your car. Yeah. That huge bag of chips, man, if you open it and you just start eating and eating and eating, your brain's like, there's still a lot left in here. I haven't eaten that much. When in reality, you could eat so many more of those chips than you could of those tiny bags.
Right.
Same kind of thing with Juul. Because it's one Juul pod, your brain goes, that's one serving, basically, right? Whereas with a pack of cigarettes, there's 20 cigarettes in there. So after somebody smokes one, they go, okay, I've had 1 cigarette. Maybe they smoke 2 and they go, okay, I've had 2 cigarettes. To smoke a pack, everybody understands that that's a lot to smoke.
Right.
We've had 8th graders tell us that they'll use an entire Juul pod in a day.
Right.
And that's about the equivalent, you know, we explained how it's a little bit different, but it's about the equivalent of the pack of cigarettes when it comes to nicotine. So these young people are just using large amounts of these products without realizing how much they're actually using.
Right. And it goes back to the thing called continual use. So if any of you are on TikTok or even Facebook or any of those kind of social media things, I remember when Facebook first came out, you would scroll through, you would read the thing, and then there would be a line that says you've reached the end of content.
Yeah.
And then you had to wait several hours before new content appeared. But now you could just keep scrolling, especially on TikTok. You could sit there for an hour and not see the same video because it's continual use. So think about all the steps that they have eliminated. Somebody smokes a regular pack of cigarettes. They had to pull the pack out. They had to tap it. They had to pull out a cigarette. They had to put it in their mouth. They had to light it after they found a place they could smoke it. Then there was an infinite amount that they could use. Once they used that one, they put it out. Then they go back to whatever they were doing because it's like, okay, that's 1 serving.
You mean a finite amount?
Finite amount. Yeah,
okay.
Not an infinite amount. Yeah, thank you. That's why I have her. See? Yeah. A finite amount of cigarette that you would smoke. So I smoked 1 cigarette today or 1 pack, right?
Yeah.
And so there was like a stopping point or a point where you knew this is how much it is. But again, going back to Juuls, they don't have that.
Yeah. And also because it's so easy to use, it's easy to just have it in your hand all day and just keep using it and using it and using it and not realizing, because no one thinks, oh, I used a 20th of a Juul pod.
Right.
That's a lot.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there's no kind of meter on it.
Right.
So that's one of the things that's taking place. Now, the Juul company, again, geared these towards kids. We were at a school out in Connecticut, and the principal, caught us at the front door as we're walking in. He goes, man, this was probably about 2.5 years ago. He said, we have the worst Juul use, in our district. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. He goes, this is what I did. He said, I had all the buses drop off the kids and go directly into the gym. And then they were going to walk through metal detectors and we were going to collect all these Juuls, that kids were using. He says, how many Juuls do you think we got? And I thought, oh my gosh, that's going to be our, I'm going to say,
100.
yeah, I'm going to say 300. And he goes, nope. And then I gave him another number that was higher. He goes, nope. He goes, 3. I said, you got 3? And he goes, yes. He said, and so we got 3 kids that had Juuls and we took them away and everybody went and he thought, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Here's what the Juul company has done. They place a magnet on the backside of a lot of these. And he said throughout the day, he saw kids going into the gym and then they would come out at these weird times. He said what the kids did is they took it and they stuck it underneath the bleachers, the metal bleachers, and they came back and picked it up. They've even gone so far as to make clothing now that can hide Juuls in the collars or in different places inside. Unbelievably detrimental what the Juul company is doing and the attractiveness it is for kids. Like I said, it takes 3 regular cigarettes to become addicted to those old-fashioned type of cigarettes. But they said when it comes to Juuls and vaping, like there's no marker because a student can actually become addicted to it the first couple of times they use it.
Another new thing that we're seeing that you never would have seen before is nicotine overdose.
Right.
So you had been talking earlier about why don't people die when they smoke, a whole pack of cigarettes. We're starting to see young people actually overdosing from nicotine, which is something that was never really possible with regular cigarettes.
Right.
So because of how much nicotine they're putting into the system really quickly, they're starting to see young people going to the hospital with nicotine overdose.
Right, right. And so nicotine overdose, gosh, it looks like lightheadedness. A student can pass out, they can vomit, and it's just a poison overdose that takes place. What are some, do you remember some of the other symptoms?
Yeah, so first it kind of goes through the stage where they feel really like manic, they feel really hyper, their heart's beating really fast. And then after a few hours, it kind of switches and their heart starts beating really slow. They feel really fatigued. They feel like they can't get off the couch. And then if they have ingested too much, it can lead to things like seizures, coma, and even death in some cases.
Right, right. So that takes place.
Now, if somebody is using a vape that is actually completely nicotine free, like they took it to a scientist, the scientist is like, yeah, no nicotine in here, then that person would think like, oh, well, it's probably better for cigarettes, right?
Right.
And the thing that they had said a lot when e-cigarettes were first coming out is it's just water vapor.
Right.
It's just water vapor in there, but it is not. Will you put up that next slide of the lungs?
I like that.
Me too.
Yeah. So anytime you say, let's show the picture of the lungs, everybody's like, no, but yeah.
So what happens when people breathe is air goes into that big tube in the middle, then it goes down and it branches off into smaller and smaller and smaller tubes. At the end of those tubes is little things called alveoli that transfer oxygen from the lungs to the blood and then push out, carbon dioxide and stuff. So real nice the way the lungs work. Now, when somebody smokes regular cigarettes, what happens is that tar that's inside those cigarettes goes into those tubes and it gets them really sticky. So just like, where we live, it gets really hot. And every now and then it can get so hot that the roads will get sticky from the tar melting.
Yep.
So same kind of thing happens inside the lungs where those tubes get really sticky. That's what ends up turning the lungs black and makes it really hard for people to breathe.
Right.
And that's something that they thought wasn't going to happen with e-cigarettes because they don't contain tar. But what they're finding is inside that liquid, the base liquid is going to be one of two things. It's either going to be vegetable glycerin or it's going to be vitamin E oil. Now, both of those oils are safe to put on your skin and things like cosmetics. They're safe to eat, but when you put them into the lungs, what studies have found is that it acts almost exactly like tar, where it gets those tubes really sticky. It makes it really difficult for people to breathe. So do you remember that YouTube video that was up for a while?
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk about that.
Okay. There was a, go ahead and jump out of this. Yeah. There was a YouTube video that went around for quite a while and kids would reference it because what a guy did, and he just did this in his backyard, is he took a soda bottle, filled it with cotton balls, and then he attached a cigarette to one end and he was able to pull the smoke from the cigarette through the cotton balls and then out. And at the end of one pack of cigarettes, oh my gosh, the cotton balls just looked terrible. They were black, they were sticky, they were really gross, and he poured it out and he goes, that's cigarettes for you. And then he did the same exact thing with a vape. And he put it on there, a Juul, and he pulled all of it through. And when you looked at the cotton balls, they look perfect. They look like nothing had happened.
Right.
There's the example right there. Vaping is better for you than not. But the problem is it doesn't work that way. So there's so many flaws in that video, but so many kids went with that information and they followed it and they believed that it was safer for them because the lungs did not look black. Now, like you said, when I was in high school, they bring around these pig lungs that were like cured and stuff, and they just looked awful, right? They did a lot of stuff to us.
Yeah, they just showed us the pictures of
right,
them. They didn't actually bring the lungs.
Yeah, us Gen X kids, and they're like, everybody on the bus, we're going to the landmine museum. Some of you aren't coming back, and we were okay with that. But yeah.
There's no permission slip, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But then it looked terrible. But then in the video, it looked like it was fine. And that just had everybody believing that it was the same. So if you were to take like something like hot melted chocolate and pour it onto like a cold apple or you make caramel, it solidifies really fast. That's what's happening inside the lungs. Now, think about this. We've all been quarantined and we've all done the thing where we bake the bread.
Real quick, let me go back to the tar thing. When people use regular cigarettes for a long time, or
Right.
when they use e-cigarettes for a long time, what they're starting to see is the damage that will be done is exactly the same. The only difference is the color. So one will be damaged and it will be black, and the other one will be damaged in the same kind of way. The only difference is they won't be black.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And you don't get the stuff traveling around inside your system the same way. Like somebody who smokes 1 pack of cigarettes every day for an entire year, 365 packs, at the end of that year, they would literally have like a baby food jar of tar floating around inside their system, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And so it was awful. But yeah, it was doing you don't see the same type of damage, but it is doing the same type of damage.
Right.
So please understand this. If kids tell you, you know what, vaping is better for you, it is not. It is equal. And here's one or two things that are great examples if you're going to talk about vaping. Like I said, we've all been quarantined, we've all baked bread, we've all done that kind of stuff. So whenever I go to bake cookies, I set my oven at 350 degrees. Now, many of you have the same type of oven I have with the convection fan on the inside, right? And if you pop the door open real quick with your face, ready to look in and see what your cookies, whoosh, you get hit with that hot air and you immediately jump back. That's happened to you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so you kind of jump back, or to open it just a little bit at first, and so that's 350 degrees, and you know how hot that is. Well, what's coming out of the back of an e-cigarette, Juul, or vape is coming out of the back of it at 450 degrees. So that is 100 degrees hotter than what your oven is set at. So the problem that happens, because we'll get kids that'll say, well, I only tried it once or twice, will anything happen? Here's what happens just trying to vape once or twice. You're putting a type of vapor into your lungs that is at 450 degrees. Now, what that is like, that's like if you take a cast iron skillet and you heat it up to 450 degrees, and you take a hamburger patty and you throw that hamburger patty in that skillet, you reach over, you grab a spatula, and you immediately take it out and you flip that hamburger over. What you're going to notice is that there's going to be little tiny pieces of that hamburger meat that are already cooked the very first time you threw it in for like 20 seconds or less, right?
Right.
Now imagine taking that hamburger patty, throwing it in the skillet, pulling it out, throwing it in, pulling it out, throwing it in, pulling it out. I could safely say after 3 years, that hamburger, probably less than that, that hamburger is going to be completely cooked and it's going to be, really dry. So the same type of thing is happening to the lungs. Every time you breathe in with a vape, it's cooking a tiny, tiny little portion of your lungs. Now, like that hamburger patty, once it is cooked, it cannot go back to being raw. So that's where at the end of life, you have problems, breathing in oxygen. At the very beginning of this, Dave was talking about having COVID, which is terrible, man. I remember when he was going through that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so worried for David. And so, hearing him talk about people that were in the hospital, and they were saying like some of the detrimental things is if you use cigarettes or e-cigarettes, that's because that's what's happening inside your lungs. You're cooking a tiny portion of your lungs that will not go back to being raw.
And especially you were talking about COVID, the majority of your immune system is housed in your lungs.
Right.
So yeah, that makes it really tough. Now you were talking about how Juul makes things kind of almost specifically for youth, like so that they can hide them and stuff. The new big thing that's on the market is disposable vapes.
Right.
So it's vapes that, with the Juul, you can switch out the pod. With other e-cigarettes, you refill the liquid. With disposable ones, it's one-time use. So it's not rechargeable, it's not refillable. So they're really cheap to make, really cheap to buy. And a young person can go to the store, purchase a vape, use it all day, throw it away, and, basically not get caught for it.
Right.
And so that's a huge thing that is really tricky for teachers and principals and parents to find.
Right. Now, I haven't found with the new vapes that are coming out, the disposable one, what the nicotine level is on those. So I haven't found that information. But there was one insurance agent that was trying to write a policy on a couple, but their nicotine level was too high and they smoked regular cigarettes. And so the insurance agent told them they needed to switch to vapes or Juuls because of the nicotine
or I think
level.
she had said just to, you need to get your nicotine levels down.
Right.
Was what she said. So they were like, yeah,
let's switch over to vapes or Juuls. And so they did. And then when they came back like 8 months later to test them, their nicotine level was actually higher.
Yeah.
And she says, why does that take place? And here's what's happening inside the lungs.
Because they were using the nicotine-free ones. Yeah.
I left a lot of stuff out of that story, huh? That's trying to get good. Yeah. I know. I'm looking at the time like, I want to get this last big chunk of information in here.
Yeah.
Because what's, huh? Oh, we had a chat question. What is it?
What is the best way to talk to kids?
What is the best way to talk to kids? That, and if you don't, I'm going to finish with this information because tomorrow that is exactly what we are talking about. And if you saw the first one on marijuana where we talked about intelligence over emotion and all of that, we're going to be talking about that specifically. So tomorrow is an hour and a half on how to talk to kids about this information.
Other question, are you going to talk about vaping marijuana?
Yes, we're going to cover a little bit of that as well. Because the content, when you're vaping marijuana, it's almost straight THC that's in there. But
also, we did cover that in our marijuana presentation. So I know that was recorded. So if you missed it, I'm not sure who you can contact, but you can get that information.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
That's all in there. So everybody, especially if you are in Idaho, right, where it gets really chilly, you have all taken a hot shower on a really cold day, right? Because that's the best.
And it's the best.
So you get in there and you start twirling and twirling and twirling, right? And whenever you were younger, I'm banging on the door, turn the hot water off, because that's what dads do, right? Now, here's what's happening when you're vaping just regular or using a Juul just regular, or when you're using marijuana, what's taking place inside the lungs. So if you were to take a really quick hot shower, right? You jump in and jump out as opposed to a long shower. All right, let's start off at the very beginning. Let's say you haven't taken a shower yet and you take one square of toilet paper and you throw it at the mirror, right? What's going to happen to that piece of toilet paper? It's going to hit the mirror and it's going to slide down. Nothing's going to happen.
Right.
Now, if you go in and you take one of those showers that's like 45 minutes, right? And the walls are sweating and everything, and you take that one square of toilet paper and you throw it at the mirror, what's going to happen now?
It's going to stick.
It's going to stick, right? That's what's taking place with those chemicals whenever you use a vape, whether you're vaping regular vape liquid or if you're vaping marijuana. That stuff goes inside the lungs and it sticks and it goes back to that 350, 450 degree temperature because it's sticking to the lungs. So it does a lot of damage to the lungs and it forms those pools inside the lungs. So it does that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I know we only have 5 minutes left, but do you want to talk about
Is it 5 minutes? I think we have a little bit more than that. 20 minutes. Okay.
Oh,
great.
Great. Till
Good.
2 o'clock. Okay, perfect. Do you want to talk about people using vapes in the bathroom?
Yes. And so did we get another question?
I watched the marijuana presentation, which was very informative. If you vape marijuana, is it better, worse, or the same as marijuana cigarettes?
So like pre-rolls? Yeah. So the thing about pre-rolls is a lot of times it is regular marijuana that you're using inside a pre-roll. What a pre-roll is you go to a dispensary and they're selling you already rolled up marijuana joints. So it's not like the Cheech and Chong thing where you have to roll it yourself, right? So you're using regular marijuana. And so that's going to have, like we said in our last presentation, about 488 different chemicals in it. So there's going to be a lot of other stuff that are taking up room. So when you use a vape, what's happening is you're vaping THC that's running right around, I'm going to probably say about 98% THC. It's almost pure THC that's going inside your system. And so the thing is, you're getting a lot more. Now, you have a pre-roll sitting in an ashtray that's burning. You have a little bit of that burning off. And then when you exhale, you have a whole bunch. But when you use a vape, just like using regular vape juice, you're getting a majority of that inside your system. So saying it's better or not better, anytime kids ask me, what's better for you? What's better, vaping marijuana or smoking marijuana or using a pre-roll or cigarettes or all, anytime they compare that, the only real way I can answer that is if you had an opportunity to have your hand hit with a brick or a hammer, which one would you choose, right?
Sometimes students will say a brick.
Yeah, they will say a brick. I'm like, is a brick going to do damage to your hand? Totally. Is that damage going to look different than a hammer? Totally.
Yeah.
So they both do damage, but they do damage in a different way.
When they answer a brick, I usually ask them, would you rather get hit by a brick or nothing?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing I was going to say is the percentage in those pre-rolls of THC is lower. It's still really high, but it is lower. So all the things that are going to happen when somebody smokes like a pre-roll, if they're vaping that marijuana, it's going to happen quicker and it's going to happen a little bit more dramatically. So if you remember the part in the marijuana presentation where we talked about the doors and marijuana sneaking into that dark part of the brain, that's what happens when people vape marijuana.
Yeah. And then again, like pre-rolls, they're measured out, you know what you're using, but with a vape, it's like that giant bag, family size. of Doritos that you're getting. Yeah, you don't know. So you think one vape is one serving, just like on Oreos, one sleeve is one serving.
One box.
But that is not true. Yeah.
Someone said, doesn't marijuana require a hotter vape than tobacco, leading to leaking metals in the lung, vaping illness?
So one of the things is there are portions of metal that heat up inside a vape that go inside a system. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. But yeah, that does take place inside that. And I have a feeling that's why they're moving to the disposable ones, because I think there may be some kind of discovery that's taking place.
When you keep reusing it.
Reusing it. Because if you think, and I wish I had the diagram because we would draw it out for kids. So picture a little battery with these little flaps that are, closed. And when you breathed in, oh, good. Hold on. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Love it. Everybody hang on for some great artwork here. Okay. Nice. Ta-da! Okay, I'm using the vape this way. Okay. So what happens, and this is where the metal starts to go into the system.
The middle part's the battery.
Yeah, this is the battery right here. And these are the little flaps. Now, when I breathe in, let me see the pen real quick. Okay. This is exactly how it goes with kids. Okay. All right. So what happens is those little flaps close and they hit this and they make a connection off the battery. And then that battery is connected to a coil right here that heats it up super fast. So the liquid has to go from here through here, start the process, and then heat it up super fast. So it doesn't have a long ways to go. Now, the chemical that they put inside of a lot of these, even THC, from what I understand, it's a chemical that you find inside microwave popcorn, and the name of it is?
Diacetyl.
Thank you, diacetyl. And so what diacetyl is, it's a type of thing that you can eat, but you're not supposed to put it into your lungs. So when you have it in popcorn, it's the thing that the microwave is attracted to, and it heats it up really fast. It does two things. One, it keeps it from becoming a solid or a liquid, so it keeps it in this gelatinous state. And then number two, it heats up unbelievably fast. And so anything around it heats it up. That's how microwave popcorn can be ready in 20 minutes and 20 seconds, 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Right?
You got that down to a science.
I do, yeah. And so the thing is, that's what they're finding inside there. But then when that cools, what happens is it keeps those little flaps closed right there. Now, these little flaps are ultra thin metal. And then this coil gets unbelievably hot over and over and over again. And that's where the pieces of metal are going into the system, but they're really tiny, but you're still seeing problems with that.
Yeah, but you did see that a lot, especially when e-cigarettes were first getting popular. You'd see people in the hospital with little pieces of metal in their system.
Yeah, yeah. Now here is what's happening, and I've been reading some articles on this because students are back in school and students are still using vape, and we still have, the Delta variant that's going around. So what's happening, and I'll use this little cap as my example, kids are going into bathrooms and they will pull out their vape and they'll start to use it. Then their friend walks in and they immediately pull it from their mouth and they hand it to their friend for their friend to use. And kids have said, other kids will walk in and they'll use the same exact vape that they're using. Now, here's what's crazy. Kids are marketers sometimes. So one student would go into the bathroom and he would set his iPhone to send out notices to other iPhones as people are walking by. Airdrop, right? So it was just in this one little location where he had a couple of vapes. He had about 5 different vapes, 5 different flavors, and kids could walk in, give him $1 and take one hit off of this vape. And so kids were just using it over and over and over again.
Yeah. Now that is a piece of information we usually don't give to younger people because we don't want them to be like, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Yeah. And so it's unbelievably gross. So imagine all of us, however many people are in this chat. Let's say there's, 60 of us in here. And I put a spoon in my mouth and I said, hey, Brooke, go ahead and put it in your mouth. And we're going to pass that all the way around the room till it gets to Dave in the back, right? Now, once it gets to Dave, I don't think Dave's going to want to put it in his mouth. You're not going to want to put it in your mouth, right? Yeah, or the fourth person. But that's what's happening with these jewels is kids are sharing them like that. and they're transmitting whatever they may have to somebody else.
Yeah, they there was one case, I think it was in Texas, where they tracked one student who had spread HPV to like, I think it was like 15, 16 students at the school.
Right. And so, yeah, so it just went around and did that. So yeah, you got to be real cautious. Other questions, other thoughts on vaping? And again, please, if you don't catch it tomorrow we're going to be talking the whole thing, hour and a half, is how do you talk to kids about drugs and alcohol? How did I talk to Brooke about that? And so we're going to be covering all that kind of information. So anything you want to add to the
one of the questions we always get is have we ever used that kind of stuff? Do you want to do your part in all?
Yeah, definitely, because kids are always wondering about that. Yeah, personally, never been drunk, never tried a cigarette, never tried marijuana or anything like that, because I came from such a crazy family when it came to that. And I remember as a little kid sitting out on the curb with my mom and had a little blanket around me as the police were going through the house, because my brother was quite the heroin addict, and he had smuggled drugs in from Mexico into the United States, and he got busted finally. And my sister, I mean, it's a whole different thing. And I've asked her if I could tell these stories. She literally ran drugs for El Chapo from El Paso, Texas, up to Chicago, New York, and Florida. And so, her life was built around meth and transporting drugs. And so she did that for a long time. And just the story she has is just crazy. And I just saw that as a little kid and thought, I don't want to be part of that. I think that's, awful. And so I made a decision. Gosh, I remember at age 5, like, I'm not going to do drugs.
Yeah.
And it just stuck with me to do that. And just wanted to know what the mechanism is. Why does this take place?
And I know specifically for vapes, I was kind of in a lucky position because when I was in school, all of your generation had done such a great job teaching us about cigarettes. So all of us knew how dangerous cigarettes were, and e-cigarettes were not quite on the market yet. So yeah, vapes and cigarettes. I was like right in that sweet spot where I knew that vapes or that cigarettes were bad and vapes did not exist yet.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely never vaped or anything like that. I never drank before I was 21. And even now I'll have like a glass of wine, maybe like once a month kind of thing. And then, yeah, any of that kind of stuff. I had some friends in high school who had smoked weed or who drank a lot, and that was a tough situation for me to be in. So I had to, bring myself to make new friends, which was tough. And it's something I like to talk about with the youth that we speak to.
I hadn't planned on doing this, but we're going to jump into it. When we're working with kids, we don't ever want to scare them, because that's not what we're here. But we want them to be able to go, okay, I see the roadmap and this is where I'm. Do we have those questions on? Oh, we do. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and get those up. So what we're going to do, and before we put those up, let me preference how we do it with kids. And if you're taking notes, please write this down. And also, if you Google my name on YouTube, you can find these questions on here. I'm going to ask you we're going to ask you 6 real basic questions to determine whether you have an addiction to vaping or not. And this is geared towards high school students or junior high kids. Now, these 6 questions, hold on real quick. These 6 questions are not designed to scare you, just to kind of give you a roadmap. So if you answer yes to one question, you're pointed in the right direction for an addiction, okay? Now, if you answer yes to all the questions, more than likely you have an addiction. And if you get scared when we ask you these questions, this is what we tell students, please talk to an adult.
Yeah.
Because we've had kids that as we're going through these questions, you can see like, oh my gosh. Or we'll have kids that, they just look shocked.
Yeah.
Now, we also tell the kids when we ask these questions, sit completely still. Because before we started doing this, we'd have kids be like, yeah, that's me, number 1, all 6.
Dude, that's you.
Hey! And so we don't want to embarrass anybody.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody to feel bad. But here are 6 questions to kind of determine whether you have an addiction or not. You want to go first? You want to go first?
You can do the first one.
Okay. Question number 1. Now, this goes to not worrying about consequences anymore. But do you know anybody that smokes in class? Now, here's what happens with students that are in class. Teachers will turn their back, write something on the whiteboard, or they'll have their back. The student will suck on that vape real quick. They'll blow the smoke behind them, or they'll blow the smoke inside their shirt. But they smoke in class where it's not a appropriate?
Yeah.
Question number 1. So yes or no on that question.
And then with virtual, we'll tell them, if you like shut your camera off, hit it really quick and turn your camera back on.
Yeah.
Question number 2, if you know somebody who goes in and out of the bathroom pretty much every passing period. So this one goes with just kind of using it multiple times throughout the day or using it whenever you have a free moment.
Right. Question number 3 is, have you ever lied to get it or purchased it illegally? Now, what students are doing is they will go onto a website to purchase them. They'll click the button that says, I'm over the age of 18. Then they'll have it sent to their friend's house because their mom won't ask any questions, right? Or if they ask a question, they say, oh, I'm getting a birthday gift from my mom. I don't want her to know about it or something, right? And so they will have a friend bring it to them. So they'll have it sent. So that's totally lying to get it, or purchased it illegally. And what that means is, did they buy it off somebody that shouldn't have been selling it, like older brother, older sister, maybe somebody that had one and they purchased it. Yeah. So if they did that, that's a huge indicator of an addiction.
Right. Question number 4, if you know anybody who wakes up and the very first thing they do is use that vape. So basically the earlier that somebody vapes in the day, the stronger sign that an addiction is present.
Right. We also do a presentation on screen addiction because we talk about that. And we also do a presentation on gambling addiction. And so this is one of the first things that we talk about. If you pick up your cell phone in the morning, there's an addictive quality to it right there. And we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow.
Yeah.
Number 5 is, if anybody gets defensive, scared, or nervous when asked these questions. So we tell kids, if you're sitting there and you think, oh my gosh, they're just trying to scare me. They don't know what they're talking about. I can quit whenever I want. What are some of the other ones that we get?
All this information's made up.
Yeah, they don't know. Yeah. If you said anything like that inside your head when we were asking these questions, what your brain is doing now is it's protecting the addiction.
And this last one always freaks kids out a little bit, but we tell them, if you have it on you right now, even though it's illegal for you to have it at school, or if you have a little hiding place for it, that is a huge sign of an addiction. So yeah, if you're bringing it to school, even though it's illegal, that goes back to the not caring about consequences. And then if you're hiding it, your brain knows that you shouldn't be using it.
Yeah.
So yeah. A lot of the times when we ask students these questions, they'll get pretty nervous, and we always tell them, please just seek out help from a teacher, a counselor, any adult that you trust, because the longer that somebody continues to use it, the harder it is to quit.
Yeah, that's the beauty of being a youth. If you start an addiction with alcohol, marijuana, something like that, it's easier to break it when you're young, but the more you do it, the more it reinforces that. Just because, like with alcohol, a student can become addicted to alcohol within a matter of 5 months, where somebody over the age of 21, it takes them about 5.5 years. If you want more information, here's all the places you can go. You can Google my name, Ray Lozano. Again, look for the youth speaker, not the guitar player. TikTok, just say Ray. Only fun stuff.
Yeah, just fun stuff on there.
Go ahead.
Instagram, Ray Lozano Speaks. That's where we post all of our blogs and our newsletters that go out. And then YouTube.
RL4DFY, and that stands for Ray Lozano for Drug for Youth. And if you want to book something or you have a question and you want it to go through like some private channels, go through admin@raylozano.com and you can get all that kind of stuff there. So,
yeah.
Good.
Is there any more questions from anyone? I know we got some really good ones. Can you think of any other questions you usually get from students?
I think that was pretty good. Yeah, I'm talking about all that. Yeah, the lungs, the brain, why it's addictive, stuff like that. And then I just got to put in another plug for tomorrow. All of these things right here, how to talk to kids about drugs and alcohol and get all that across, because we are built for addiction. We are. Our brain, just because of how it's designed, we are built for addiction. And so how do you take the way that the brain is wired and get kids addicted to you as a parent or you as a program? So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So yeah, good. Dave, back to you, sir.
I am back here. Okay, well, that was good. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm excited about tomorrow because every once in a while there will actually be a presentation that I haven't seen before. So it's always cool when it's something that I haven't.
That one is a good one. Not to brag on him too much, but I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
I actually did, even though been hanging out with you for a while. I learned something with this vaping thing. Actually, I'm gonna create a couple graphics off of what we off of this vape presentation, because I think it was
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you one thing, Dave, and this goes for everybody. Use my information. I was telling Dave about this. I walked into a classroom one time and I started doing this whole thing on the brain. And one of the students looked at me and goes, our teacher does the same exact thing. And I looked over at the teacher and she had this really shocked look on her face because I know she'd been watching my videos. And I gave her this thumbs up. So if you see something in there, we're talking about the shower
Definitely.
or the 488 different chemicals, or you talk about the ironing, use it. Yeah, that's what we want you to do, because we just want this information to get out to kids. So.
And then I don't know if you saw that, but Shannon put a little clapping emoji.
Yay,
a bunch
thanks,
of
Shannon.
people are saying great job, thank you. So thank you guys for being here today. You
Yeah.
know, we wouldn't be here without you guys. So
yeah, definitely.
Well, I know we've had a full day, guys, of prevention stuff and meetings and really good information. So because you guys all voted for an early release instead of another training, you guys get to go back either back to your lives or catch up on all the work that's been piling up all day. We really appreciate you being a part of this day, first day of the prevention conference, and especially sticking with us as we switch to virtual. It's super exciting to see so many people participating, and so super appreciative of that. So we will be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and we will start with the presentation that Ray keeps talking about, the addiction presentation. And we have actually, no, I think I'm looking at the wrong thing. Anyway, I will get my agenda back up. We emailed everybody the agenda with the links. If you have any questions, if you don't have the link, please feel free to email me or Chloe, and we will make sure we get you plugged in tomorrow. So no, tomorrow has a different Zoom link. It's not the same one as today. If it's in the agenda, if you have, actually, I think I have it saved. Let me see if I can post it right now for you guys. Yep, because I had to send it to one of the trainers for tomorrow. So we're gonna have another full day of presentations, and then we're going to do our beg, borrow, and steal at the end before we get you guys' post-conference surveys. So everyone have a good rest of your day.